Good afternoon. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorraine. Today I'm going to talk about my reaction to Jolene and Lindy's joint project of what are the best Canadian literature books since 2000. I was a participant in that. I sent in my top 10 choices, and then I also did a video about what those 10 were. And so Jolene and Lindy have sent out a video, which, if the technology works today, I'm at the camp with very little options. I will try to link it below, but if not, what you want to do is go to Bookworm Adventure Girl, and that's Jolene, and on YouTube, and you will be able to link up. It's the latest video that she's done. You will be able to look up what they did. It's a great project. So I don't know how many actual participants there were, but over 300 books were nominated from people across Canada, the US, and a few international people. And not everybody has a YouTube book channel. A lot of people were just her viewers and Lindy's viewers, and they both have a sizable number of viewers, so they had really good response to the whole thing. And so in order to make it to the top list, they decided that the books had to receive 3 or more votes. So there was quite a few, because only 67 made the list. So there were quite a few that just received 1 vote each or 2 votes each. And there were 17 books of poetry, only received 1 vote each. I think they said there was something like 14 nonfiction books. So there was a really nice selection of offerings. Now, what ended up happening is there was a bunch of clusters, like one book would, what do I mean by that? It doesn't matter. Watch it. They'll explain it. So as they've gone through each of the books that were chosen, that made their list, they've done a very, very brief explanation as to what the book is. And sometimes both of them have read it. Sometimes just one of them has read it. And so that gives you a sense, too, of if you watch either of their stations, you get to get a better sense of what they're reading and what they're really enjoying. So what I did was I watched this in 2 parts, because it's an hour and I'm going to say it's an hour and 20 minutes. So I watched it in 2 parts. It was really nice. Had a cup of tea and a really nice cookie each evening. And I came up with my own little reaction video to it. Now, I'm totally 100% positive on this. I think it's just a brilliant little project. There's so many good books that were brought forward that were Canadian. And I just love that it was across nonfiction, fiction, poetry. There were memoirs. There was like serious scientific kinds of nonfiction. There was historical fiction. There was speculative fiction, mysteries, and then in my case I had put forward 2 or maybe even 3 books for young adults or middle readers. And we have got such a rock solid group of Canadian authors in all genres that it's really fun to just explore that a little bit and see what trickled up. So out of the 10 that I recommended, I had 4 that made it to the top. Made it to the top 67. So I had recommended Inconvenient Indian, Lullabies for Little Indians, which did quite well, Do Not Say We Have Nothing by Madeleine Tien, and no, I'm wrong. I wrote down here Lullabies for Little Indians. That's not right. I got my titles confused. Lullabies for Little Criminals by Miriam Toews, and 5 Little Indians by Laura Good. So those 4 made it, and out of the other 6, they didn't make it at all. Probably some of them didn't even get 1 vote, especially the ones for the younger readers. Okay, I am going to just talk about their list, but I'm not going to tell you who won, because I think it's really worth going to and watching this thing in its entirety. The winner received 33 votes, I believe. And like I said, I don't know how many participants there were. So let's just pretend the 360 divided by 10, that's 36 participants. You know, maybe some people only did 8 or 9, or somebody did 11 and got crazy and bold. So let's just say out of 36, let's just say 40 participants, one of these books received 33 votes. Like I'm making that statistic up. I don't know if there's any fact in that. That's just me coming up with my own version of math. Okay, so I don't want to give you the top one, but it won by like a lot. What was the other thing I wanted to tell you about? I actually had a list of about 25 books that I was going to, offer, that I was contemplating my way through, and they were all, some of them were quite even, Steven, like I had 2 books by Richard Wagamisi and Medicine Walk and Indian Horse and Medicine Walker. Yeah, there we go. So, it was just kind of flip a coin, and that was true for a couple of my authors. Now, so out of those 25 that I could have chosen between, 12 made the list. So, aren't I well read? And you can be too, if you follow through and go to this list. I've shared it with my book club, and I've shared it with some really close friends who like to read. So I wonder whether this is going to have a little bit of an impact. I'm really curious. The other thing they mentioned about is that Miriam Toews, Toews, who has, I think, 5 novels to her credit, was one of the most named authors. But her 5 books were spread across, like 1 vote, 2 votes. So I think that, in terms of general popularity, she was definitely one of the top contenders as a single author. Michael Crummy, same kind of statistics, although I think that he had more like 2 and 3 votes. So 4 of Michael Crummy's books made it to the overall list. Margaret Atwood always, but Margaret Atwood and I do not see eye to eye. So if you like Margaret Atwood, then let's just keep it a secret. We'll agree to disagree. Now, 3 books that made it that, like I hate, and they were all in the top 12. And I just thought, no, I am either like the grumpiest person in the whole world about these books. I have not met many people who dislike these books as much as I do. And because I'm pretty sure the authors are not like going to come down raining hard on me. And I'm sure none of you are going to get harsh with me either, because we all have books that we just don't agree with the rest of the world on. Washington Black, I was so upset by Washington Black. Will I explain why? Oh yeah, okay. All 3 of these books that I'm talking about, I did not like for the very same reasons. And the second one was Book of Negroes, and the third one was Marrow Thieves. Now, it's not because of the protagonist. It has nothing to do with who we're talking about and the time periods that we're talking about. My problems were entirely around plausibility of plot. The Marrow Thieves, I live in a camp. Look where I spend my summers, and if you could see below my shoulders, you would know you can't walk through that with a backpack on. And if there's 8 of you, you can't walk in that and not leave a huge trail of destruction behind you. So you can't be sneaking through the woods. That's just right from the word go. I'm just like, there's no way this plot can work. So okay, is that a valid point to detest a book on? I don't know. Book of Negroes, kind of the same thing. And Washington Black, same thing. We've got this protagonist who is on a journey, and the journey, especially in Washington Black, the timeline made no sense. There's no way that kid could have been 8 years old, and the book finishes when they're in their teens, and there's just no way that this person could have risen from the plantation horrific story to the final ends of the story. I just thought it was one of the cruelest books I've ever read in terms of what happened to that little boy, and just the things that kept happening along the way. It was just such a story of abandonment, and I just, if maybe 2/3 of the protagonist's journey had been cut out, not necessarily the things that went wrong, but just like the actual physical traveling through the world part, I just was so upset. I mean, we're talking about a time when there were no engines in boats, right? It takes you months to cross an ocean. So like that alone just made the timeline completely improbable. And Book of Negroes, she lived too long. Like, it was like, I just thought, there is nothing this woman hasn't encountered that, it's just, it was a soap opera. I didn't like it at all. Okay, having said that, and probably got myself into a ton of trouble. That's what we're all about here, is just a little bit of trouble, a little bit of mischief making once in a while. The other things that I wanted to talk about is that out of the top 10 books that were voted upon, I have read 6. Yes, 6. And there's definitely, for sure, very interesting themes running here. There is an awful lot of people who are disadvantaged either through color or religious affiliation or what's the word, like environmental catastrophe. So Canadians really like a dark story. There was quite a lot that was fairly recent, as in terms of, I would say that a lot of the books came from the last 5-ish years, 7-ish years. There weren't a ton of books that were pulled from the early 2000s. And so I don't know whether we're just all, maybe none of us keep very good book journals and we can't remember what we read 20 years ago. I was certainly in that case, where I'm thinking, gee, I just didn't keep my books, my notes about what I read with respect to what was Canadian and what was American. So I struggled to find like a really honest list as to what I had read for the last 25 years. So I'm sure other people are in the same boat. I do believe, and I have my statistics slightly wrong here, but I think that of the top 10, there were 3, possibly 4 Indigenous First Nations writers, which is great. And so, again, we've got a theme going where these authors are bringing stories forward to us that, well, let's face it, most of these books come out in hardcover, or they're part of the Canada Reads sort of promotional thing. So it's like there's a certain demographic that's responding to this book challenge. And so they're probably, reading things like the Toronto Star, the Globe and Mail. They're probably listening to the CBC. They're probably mostly middle class, probably have a certain amount of disposable income. So, like, I think it's kind of interesting what's the demographic as to, who's actually, and have the leisure time to watch videos. So that's just interesting. It's not like going to change the world or anything, but it's just kind of interesting to note. I think the other thing that's rather interesting is there seems to me to be a fairly good 50-50-ish balance between male protagonists and female protagonists. And I think that this has a kind of a skew towards stories that are taking place in the past. Not very much kind of future-looking stories that are, I guess that would make it speculative fiction, not necessarily science fiction, but, predictions as to a story that's placed 10 years in the future or so on. We don't have any of that happening. I'm sure there are other more pithy things that could be said about this list, and I'm hoping that some of you will watch Jolene and Lindy's video. There's another video out there that was done by, I don't know her first name, French-Canadian gal, and living in Ottawa, and her site is called Boquins and Books. Now, Boquins is spelled Bouquins, and then the little and sign, books. And she's done a really fun look at the statistics and where she how she ranks herself in respect to this list, because as a Francophone, she has some very interesting comments to make in as to how many French books were brought forward and what she read in French and English. And the other thing, she's got a cool idea about how Canada Reads figures into this this list. What's the relationship? And she ponders a little bit on both the Giller Prize and the Governor General Prize. Now, the Giller Prize, I generally run in the opposite direction. And I think what's interesting is the ones that I tend to read books before they're the Giller Prize. Somehow I'm just kind of lucky that way. And I would say, like, what was one that I'm pretty sure won the Giller Prize, but it isn't in the top 10, oh no, it is. It's here. The Break by Katarina Vermette. I love Katarina Vermette, but oh my God, I say that's an author that when you finished a book, you feel like you skidded on a gravel road. You're just so tingling with, oh, I read that. So, well, the other thing that I think is that a lot of these books have got hope at the end. They're pretty dire situations, or dire, especially the environmental catastrophes, pretty dire scenarios. But I feel that they all kind of, lift you up at the end. They take you on a really hard journey and bring you somewhere. So I recommend all those 10, except for those, ones that we just, the ones that I would have given a 0. Okay, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to say about that. I am so grateful that Jolene and Lindy did this. I really think it's a lot of fun, and I hope it has a little bit of rollout effect, and I think they're going to do some kind of read-along. I'm not sure, but as I say, I passed this to my book club, and I think it wouldn't be at all hard for us in the next 3 to 4 years. We don't have to do any real hard work about what are we going to read next. It's just like, let's pick what nobody's read off this list. But don't forget, there's all those other books. There's 320 some odd books that didn't make it to to the video. They only received 1 or 2 votes. So, like, we have a treasure trove there. I think it's really cool. That's it for me. I'll be back next week with any kind of solar power luck. It's kind of sunny now, when the last 2 days has just been such deep fog that like the cushions are wet. And all of a sudden the sun just kind of burst, and it went from 19 degrees to 23 degrees, and now it's at 35 degrees. Can you believe it? But we are madly charging up devices, and so hopefully I'll have enough power to talk to you again in the near future. Bye-bye for now.